found out about my work and they said, can you please come and scan us? That ultimately took me to Europe. I was invited by a government agency to test their diplomats, and for me to bring anyone who I felt sure was suffering from this phenomenon. They allowed me to use a research facility, test these individuals in a Faraday cage, anechoic chamber, which is a robust Faraday cage, and it was rated to block out frequencies between 8 kilohertz and 19 gigahertz. The frequencies we were detecting out in the field were well within that. So we used controlled people, which our frequency counters read 0 for the first time ever. So we knew we were in the right environment. When we brought in those symptomatic individuals, we were detecting frequencies. So it was at that point we conclude, for whatever reason, these frequencies are emitting from the human body. Ultimately, that led to the Bonnie Kellerby cases where they started doing surgical removals, finding these biosensors. Now, in 2016, which is far further, you know, in the future from 2010, it was recognized, but from our diplomats and our FBI agents and CIA agents and congressional members, Colonel Agron testified that this is happening to all of them, but they're saying it only happens to federal employees. We know for a fact that this has been happening, at least we've been documenting since 2010, to U.S. citizens here in the United States. Why else would the head doctor of a 3-letter agency contact me and tell me, you and Dr. Hall kind of Renaissance men, and you're absolutely correct. There's significant overlap between the 338 federal employees that he's treating for Havana syndrome and our clients are the same. He said the only difference is that you are surgically removing biosensors. Tell me more.
So, I have so many questions. It's not just affecting federal employees, as you've documented, it's affecting average Americans. White.
I've kept them because of that enterprise, how they removed the board from 7 of 9. I'm only joking.
Caucasian women, newly single, widowed, men, white Caucasian men in that strata. And have you been able to trace back the moment when this started? An injection, some sort of a doctor's visit, some sort of a vaccine? I mean, how is this getting into their bodies, or does it have to be injected into their bodies?
Very good question. So, a little bit about the history in a very short amount of time. Back in the 1940s, the U.S. military was implanting our soldiers with RFID chips the size of a large grain of rice. Into the 80s, early 80s, it became a small grain of rice. Late 80s, they were now approaching the size on a letter of a penny. Okay? That has, and you're lucky if they can be identified on any type of medical imagery, because that could surgically be removed. What we noticed is post-COVID, I started getting just inundated by calls of people saying that they're suffering from this, and there was a huge spike. So when we were scanning people back then, maybe on average 4 to 7, 4 to 8 locations, high side was 10. Now post-COVID, when we're scanning people, the average is about 20 locations that they're lighting up. They're not random, they're very specific and very predictable. Back in the early 2010s, if you were incarcerated and we scanned you, we already knew you were incarcerated just by the pattern that was developing. We could superimpose all those over each other and they were identical. We can take soldiers, those who were in the military who were coming up positive. Their pattern was slightly different, but you can superimpose them over each other and they were identical. Then you can take the general population and their patterns were identical.
So just so I understand correctly, I'm sorry, you're blowing my mind here, but like you could look at those who were prisoners and they had a similar pattern. You could look at soldiers and they had a similar pattern. And you could look at the general population, the mom that goes to Trader Joe's in the afternoon, and she had a similar pattern to another mom that goes to Trader Joe's in the afternoon. Am I understanding
Exactly.
I know I'm dumbing it down a little bit, but is that...
That is exactly what I'm saying. Yeah. And there were a couple of anomalies, but when we found an anomaly in an unusual location, they said they always had a surgical procedure. Now,
can I jump in really quick with a question? So does every human give off some sort of signal And then, but you're just getting a certain pattern with the ones that are infected, or others give no signal whatsoever.
Back prior to COVID, it was not unusual to scan someone and they came up with no detectable signals, just nothing. What we've discovered recently, post COVID, everyone is coming up positive in the exact same locations that we were detecting prior to COVID of those who are symptomatic. So what I had a software engineer recently who insisted that I test his 3-year-old and 6-year-old. He was so vigilant and so demanding that I do it, and he didn't tell me why. And I finally agreed after getting permission from both parents to do this. And when I scanned those two little children, they came up identical as the adults. I was shocked, and it was, and quite frankly, I was a little upset. No more than a little upset. I was pissed off.
Yeah, because they're using children. I mean, that's why no way in hell I would ever put this in my children, right? I mean,
Yeah.
no way. But a lot of people did. A lot of people were like, yeah, I want to give as many shots as I can, and many of these COVID shots and boosters and anything I can to shove into my children. It's devastating.
What this engineer did not tell me is he built a Faraday cage in his home, and he did RF testing on his children inside the Faraday cage, and they were coming up positive. And so he wanted my expertise in order to verify what his findings were. And he never told me what he did until after I did the testing. And then I understood why. And so it was then that I said we need to continue to start testing the general population now. And I just came back from the UK.
Now you got to remember too, this is why I say, what you do with this information is on you. I'm not going to be held responsible for whatever you decide to do, if you flip out or if you take it with a grain of salt or discard it. It's not. It's just presenting the information. So keep in mind that Clayton Morris here is ex-Fox and Friends. Same as Tucker Carlson and Dan Bongino and Glenn Beck. And his wife Natalie Morris is I think, CNN. They're both ex-mainstream media anyway. So you can always guarantee that there's a faux painting somewhere. However, that said, all this information I have heard many times before, and I've known about RFID and so forth. 20 years or more. Just like I knew Port Arthur was going to happen before it happened. I didn't know where, I just knew it was going to be in Tasmania. So I don't think that I know everything, but I know a fair bit. I know a lot more than a lot. That's why I don't come up with random patterns when I'm forming a picture. I actually get the picture. Sometimes you just got to move bits, sometimes you got to discard bits. One thing you got to know about the rabbit holes, many of them are dug for you to fall into. They're there on purpose. Not as facts, as things to lead you astray.
I was there for 3 weeks. We were doing some human testing on people who were non-symptomatic, but had had the jab. And what we're finding is the exact same thing. They are all lighting up now. We're not finding what we did back in the early 2010s, where it would not be unusual to find someone who came up negative. So what this is, our hypothesis now is those who are symptomatic are turned on. Those who are non-symptomatic haven't been turned on yet. And there is an article put out by Scientific Neurology, which is also in that presentation that we sent to you. And I encourage everyone to get a hold of this article. It's called Surgical Neurology International, and it was put out by Dr. Fabian de Roulet, his PhD, And he really talks about the whole spectrum of this program. This is all the reason we think those are symptomatic right now. Those are the beta tests, and we're probably in a new form of war. The United States has this tech, the UK has this tech, Russia has this tech, China has this tech, India has this tech.
Cognitive warfare.
A new form of war. We'll have a link to this article in the description. Do you think that this, so when you then, I mean, you're just studying human patients, and you're looking at this cross section of these Americans who are having these symptoms. Do they have some sort of political beliefs that are all in unison? You know, are they all? You know, that's what my brain immediately goes to. They were all at, like, you know, supporters of Black Lives Matter. You know what I mean? Like, what anything common there that you've then analyzed?
Well, no. I think when you read that report, the Surgical Neurology International, it talks about how microwave frequencies are being utilized as a weapon of war. It talks about the 5G. China, yesterday we just read an article, they just turned on their 6G. And in it says in the 6G, they have the ability to read and manipulate the human brain with it. Okay? This is what we're facing. If you have this nanotech in you, you are no longer considered human. There's a new term for the human species, homoborgenesis. And my question to this, if this was basically imposed upon us without consent, and you're no longer considered human, the debate is going to come at some point here. Just like they gene-engineer, crops, and they patent it. Now, are you a patentable item? Are you still covered by human rights if you're no longer considered human? This is what we're facing. When Putin said that the first superpower to master psychotronic weapons, how powerful a weapon can this be if you can imprint memory sets upon what I call demographical biospheres, bubbles across the United States, get them to believe one thought process versus another, divide and conquer? That is what's being implemented on us. It's important that we educate everyone so you can get in tune with your internal true self, your internal spirit, your true moral compass. You know what that is. Once you are aware of this tech and you start to get influences that are not common to yourself and you can identify that, this is part of the battle. But really what we all need to do is bind together. Because if we do not stop this now, just think about this. Before, it only took 50 years to change a generation's perspective. Now with the advent of AI, supercomputing, quantum computing, Moore's law has been superseded. It has been broken. Instead of seven years, we're now exponentially increasing our technology. And when we're integrating AI into this, and Dr. Giordano, who is a world-leading expert on this technology, completely talks about AI being integrated with this. Elon Musk says that we're creating an AI god. There's a command and control video that we sent you. It's important that you show that to the listeners, because ultimately that is what they're trying to implement. Total control, total slavery. You don't conform. Your digital resources are cut off from you. You can't buy food, water, you can't pay bills. You can't access any monetary anything in order to buy anything because you just aren't following the system.
The Central Command Platform gives key decision makers easy access to advanced surveillance options. Using the icons at the top, we can toggle the visibility of the subjects we want to view. We'll tap the human icon to activate their visibility. This gives us a real-time view of all the subjects in our jurisdiction. Let's use the search bar to find a specific subject. Here, we can search by typing in the name of a subject or search with an image of the subject's face. First, let's try typing in the name of our subject. In this case, there were two people with the same name found in our jurisdiction. We can tap a subject's live location to see more details. We can now see the live location and source details of the person we tapped on, with options to see more details to help us determine if this is our subject. To search by face, let's say we have an image of the subject. We can source this from a surveillance integration or by manually uploading an image. Using face search, we can find the exact person who matches the face of our subject. Let's say our subject is suspected of committing a crime last night. We can use the AI chat to see where he was at the time of the crime. The chat will respond and show us the exact location on the map. Let's say we have a crime report that tells us the suspect fled the scene at 9:30. Let's use the timeline tool to go to exactly 9:30. We can see that it matches the report. He's leaving the bar. Let's see where he is right now by using the timeline tool to go back to live. We can use the chat to automate the next steps, such as requesting an arrest warrant and sending units to the area once we receive it. The chat will automatically create an action plan and execute the plan for you as soon as you give the approval. It'll notify the relevant parties, execute according to your department's protocol, and custom integrations with your current services, allowing you to keep your jurisdiction safe and secure right from the palm of your hand with the central command platform.
That is what they're facing, and this is why it's important that we share this.
I mean, it sounds like the Matrix, you know, you're
Yeah.
plugged in. I mean, it's unbelievable to me. The idea that someone somewhere at a dashboard is saying, we're going to flip on, we're going to flip these individuals on right now in Memphis, Tennessee. Over here in Salt Lake City, there's a group of 100 individuals. We're going to turn those guys on today, and they're going to start to experience these symptoms. I mean, it sounds insane.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, and after hearing this, a lot of people are gonna wonder, am I infected or whatever? Like, is there a way people can know, like, themselves? Because they're gonna, like, after they see this, they're gonna be freaking out. Like, what can they do to know that they are infected?
Well, Doctor, there was a Trojan horse that was instituted upon a global society. Dr. Sherry Tenpenny recently disclosed a video where she was disclosing that in the PCR testing, that hydrogel, this graphene oxide, a lot of this nanotech was instituted in that. You know, not everyone took the vaccine, but I would argue that the majority of the globe was forced to take the PCR test. You were forced to take a COVID test, otherwise you couldn't see your children's basketball game. You couldn't, you know, go out
Right.
in public and events. So this was forced upon all of us.
So it was in the PCR tests, not even in just in the COVID.
In the hydrogel.
In the
Hydrogel, yeah. Not in addition, they're finding in the vaccines. There's no hiding that, and they're finding in this anesthetic derivative xylocaine. So anytime you've been numbed, go to a dentist, that you cannot get a xylocaine derivative or lidocaine derivative right now that does not have the nanotech in it.
So even just going to get a simple blood test right now, just having them numb the area before a blood test, you could be receiving these nanoparticles?
Absolutely. So I'm working with a very talented group of people. Just like Ido Bachelet teaches his students how to program these things, we believe if we're able to establish the protocol that they're utilizing, that we can come up with a solution, basically a cure to make these things inert. But it's going to be a back and forth battle. You know, once you find out a way to stop it, then they're going to find a way to reintegrate it again. And this is going to be a consistency that we foresee in the near and far future. Right now, the best thing that can be done, like I said, I've never stood behind anything until recently. The Zeolite Z product that is out there, that's basically all natural Mother Earth. It's a negatively charged mineral. It's created when you have volcanic activity in sea, and in blue zones, that's the best place to get it, and they source it from. But what we're finding is that those who are symptomatic, like I said, both in intelligence agencies and the victims that I normally see, are saying 50 to 70% reduction in their symptoms. And they've done testing, blood testing at initial levels at control, seeing the graphene oxide peak after taking it, which is what you were expected because it's being excreted out of your body. And then after 90 days, it levels down to at least a minimal tolerable level. I right now it's a band-aid, but it is a some type of solution to help. What we are finding in the general population of the non-symptomatic people, those who are coming up positive in the least locations, 3 or 4, which is something that I rarely see now, are those who live outside of cities, suburbs, in very distant locations, live a very organic life, haven't had the vaccine, just live a completely healthy lifestyle. For whatever reason, those are the ones who are coming up positive in the least locations. We're currently working on trying to find cultural groups who are very isolated, like the Amish, and we're working on trying to start testing them to see, because you asked how's it to get in you. The larger tech was with an injection or some type of medical procedure. With the nanotech, we know that an injection is a modality for it to be in you, but it's also in our foods. It's being marketed in the cosmetics as the next greatest way of marketing things. And we still haven't figured out why those who live out in distant, remote areas are still coming up positive in at least 3 or 4 locations. That would mean it's either in our water or it's in our air.
And of course, Dane Wigington, friend of the show, Dane Wigington, of course, who has followed the particles that are being sprayed in our skies through cloud seeding programs and all of the other work that he's done on that, and the aluminum in the air and everything else that they're blasting into the air with these sky chemtrails or whatever else you're seeing in the sky. Maybe that explains it, but of course.
Well, and also the control they have on all the farmland now. Like they control all the farmland. So like we don't even know all the entry points at this point.
Yeah, we're constantly bombarded. So at least with the Zeolite Z, it at least keeps it down to a minimal level where you minimize, and it excretes the graphene oxide as well as other toxic metals. But graphene oxide specifically amplifies RF signals. Okay, basically our health systems have been weaponized against us. That is what's happened now. And each and every human being who has this in them, this nanotech, is a node. You are connected to the internet. Each and every one of us is a transmitter and a receiver. Now remember, again, when you read that New World Vistas report on page 89, and even go further to the other report that talks about them being able to remotely read your thoughts back in 1972, this system will have the ability to do that on a mass scale once the 6G is turned on.
Jeez. So, I guess it's hard to maybe answer the question, but who's behind this?
Okay. What we can say is the frequencies that we are detecting almost always go back to a group of military subcontractors and telecommunications companies. All of them are fighting for this neurotechnology. The BRAIN initiative that was instituted by President Obama was not a mistake. This was all construed on purpose. In 2011, I was at the Presidential Bioethics Commission under Amy Gutmann, who was appointed by President Obama, who is now the ambassador to Germany at the UN. I was there with my assistant, and this was broadcasted worldwide. And they were talking about wanting to map every living organism's genome, including humans, back then. And I was allowed to ask a question, and my assistant wrote this down, and she can bear witness to this. They took a break, and my question was going to be asked next. And my question was this: I understand the importance of your experimentation, but what safeguards have you put aside for when your experimentation goes wrong? Because I already knew what was happening. We had been tracking this phenomenon early on, and I was asked to go attend that meeting. And what they did was ripped up my question. And Amy Gutmann in that meeting said this, that they are the top elite 1% of the top 1% that should decide on health decisions and what should be done to our bodies, that we are too dumb to make good decisions for ourselves. That's the mentality that we're dealing with at the upper echelons, those that are in control.
I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's not much of a limb, but this is one of the most mind-blowing, disturbing interviews I've ever done. Thank you for your incredible work on this, Jesse. I'd love to have you back. Maybe we can do an even deeper dive on all of this. And I want to put this out to our audience. And maybe any questions you have for our audience, Jesse, that you want to ask, because we can maybe try to catalog in the comments here, and people can reach out to us directly.
Yeah.
You know,
my question is this.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, my question is this. What kind of future do you want for your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren? Do you want them to have the ability to have free thinking, free thought, and individuality, and that creativity that, you know, our Creator has given us? Or do you want everyone to be cloned? Do you want everyone to be worker bees? Do you want them to be forever enslaved? We are the only species on this planet that has to pay to live. Think about that, and that's profound, okay? If you think that this is happening to you or know of someone that could benefit from what we do and help coaching people to find evidence and solutions, you can contact us at mindnexuslive.com. Also, if you're interested in the zeolite product, it's called Masterpiece. You can see that at our website. Again, I am not one to promote anything. I never have before in 20 years, the 2 decades that I've been doing this. But I am saying that it does work and it does help. And I see thousands of people around the globe who are suffering from this phenomenon. You can contact us, ask us any questions. We'll get back to you, or contact your platform. Reach out to us. My team is super great. They will answer everything, and they always get back to everyone. And also, if you type in the letters MNX, you'll actually get a discount on the Zeolite Z if you wanted to do that. But read the research there. It's there. You can see the studies. Don't take my word for it. I always say, everyone, do your own research.
Right.
And all the documentation will be provided for you. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jesse. Yeah, please leave us comments here under this video if you have been suffering from this. If you said, you know, I've never known where to go, and now this has been a light bulb moment for you. So please share your story with us here. Jesse, thank you so much. Like I said, I'd love to have you back on to do an even deeper dive on this. Just mind-blowing. Thank you so much.
And thank you. Appreciate your platform. It's important. Thank you.
It is a bit scary to know that the most valuable private company.
It is very bloody scary. So there you have it, folks. Welcome to hell.